even though it's yellow. So if I say green sheet, sorry. So we've got this giant table of a whole bunch of numbers. So we've got to figure out how to read our table first. What's something that stands out of all these numbers? They're decimals. What else? Some places they start with 0, some places they don't. What are pieces of this graph that stand, or this chart that stand out?
Z.
What? Z. So this is actually 2 pages. There is a separate page over here. There's a separate page over here. And so it says Z at the top for both of them. So what kind of Z's are the ones on the left-hand side? Negative. What kind of Z's are the one on the right-hand side? Positive. What does a Z score mean? This is one of our things we wrote yesterday. More specifically, number of standard deviations from the mean. So right now, don't draw anything. We're thinking like this. So from yesterday, if I told you to draw a graph, you would start here and then draw your lines. And this is our what? Mean. So how many standard deviations am I away from the mean at this point? So like that's where our chart starts when we're doing a standard normal distribution. Numbers that go this way are what? Negative. Numbers that go this way are? Numbers that go this way are what in relation to the mean? Less than. Numbers that go this way are? Greater than. So this entire left side are all for dealing with numbers that are less than the mean. The entire right side is all for numbers that are dealing with more than the mean. So your chart, you've got like a tiny little bit of space up top on each one of them. This is the one thing that you can draw. I want you to draw a little curve up here. So it's saying it's going for this side of the graph. Just like that. And go ahead and I always draw 0 as my reference. And let's go ahead and do that for the right side as well. So I'm not telling you what to do on them yet, but you've got something as a reference for the left side and something as a reference for the right side. Let's figure out how to even read the table itself at all right now. Where is a Z of 0? Let's look on the right-hand side one. So on the positives over here, where is 0? But it's a whole line, so how do I know which one's actually 0? So this is telling me the what place of the number? The whole number in the tenths place. This is telling me the hundredths place. So like if I went to here, that would be 0.08. That's not the number that's there. So at 0, 0, we're all not fully reading the graph yet, but we can all agree with this is 0, right?
Yes.
What number does it say for 0? 0.5. So what do you think it's doing in relation to where 0 is?
Going to the right.
It's going, does it matter right now which way? Does that tell us which way to go? No. So as my numbers are getting more positive, what is that number doing? Increasing. So which way are we shading? If I get a number here and I shade to the right, is that half the graph, more than half the graph? You see what I'm saying? Look at 1. Right, 1.00, so you're 1.0 on the left-hand side, 0.00 up top. And that has an area of 0.8413. So am I shading left or am I shading right? left, because is that more than half? Yes, so I'm going this way. This entire graph is shading to the left. I'm showing you a color up here, but it doesn't need to be. So you need over here, this whole graph is starting with a negative number and shading left. This whole graph is starting with a positive number and shading left. That's all that you need to show up top. This whole left side is negative numbers shading left. This whole right side is positive numbers shading left. My one warning to you right now, yeah, that's fine. The one warning I want to tell you is there are other charts out there. IZAIA, right? There are other charts out there that, like, I've taught it out of a book before where it always shades to the middle, and there are books out there where they shade to the right. So I wouldn't ever go look for a different one of these tables because there are ones out there that don't shade to the left and most people do that. Okay, so questions about just what this chart is, even just reading it. You don't have to know what it means yet, but if I say I can go to a number, and then when I follow it out, that means at that number, I'm going to the left, and it's that much. So, like, just reading it, 1.63. What number is at 1.63? 0.9484. So we're just making sure we're all reading it right. What number is at negative 2.34?
Wait, wrong one.
0.0096. We gotta get that, just making sure we can read the graph. Okay. What are the numbers that we knew from yesterday? Empirical rule, what three numbers? Alright, so thinking about that, here is 68%, which means this is how much? So if I wrote these in terms of z-scores instead, so this was one standard deviation this way, so what z-score would this be? And y'all don't need to be writing this anywhere. So based off of what we did yesterday, if I asked you a question on your homework, what would that area be? 16%, right? So look on your graph at -1, and what do you get? Is that pretty close to 16%? So these are estimates of that whole sheet. So now we're dealing with, well, what if, let's see if I got a homework one up. Well, what if somebody weighs 170 pounds? That's not on there. Well, that's when we go to our yellow sheet now instead. So we're just going to talk about, to start, how to read our yellow sheet with numbers. Z-scores, you said, are number of standard deviations, what? Away from the mean. Everything in the middle of a graph corresponds to an area or probability. And it is the area or probability shaded which direction? Left. That's not that right. When is the only time you can use a empirical rule? When it's normal. Am I using the same numbers that I did up there? Did we just say that we're getting the same thing? Basically the same thing? So you can only use this sheet if it's normal. Alright, so our first one says between z equals 0 and z equals 0.56. So I've got this little blank graph. I'm going to draw a line at 0, and I'm going to draw a line at 0.56. Now, if you're thinking like yesterday, you're thinking 0.56 should be like here, and you're saying that correct. With these graphs, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're saying we have 0, and then we have something to the right of it. So technically, I'm not going to measure or anything. And so this problem is literally saying between, so you're going to actually shade here between. Alright, so when z equals 0, what does your chart say the area is? And I will tell you, I always write area in 5 decimals, and I always write z's as 2 decimals because your sheet always has 2 decimals for z and areas is 5 decimals or 4 decimals. And if you do that, it will keep you from making a lot of mistakes. Alright, so then my other z is 0.56, which according to my chart has an area of what? 0.7927123. So I'm just reading the chart right now. So to make sense of what we're doing, and don't draw this, this blue area here is an area of what? 0.5. This yellow area here is an area of what?
Those two added together. 0.7.
Do I want to shade more or erase to be just left with the shaded part? I want to erase this, right? So mathematically, what does it mean to erase it?
So everything in yellow right there would be them added together, right?
No, yellow is just this one. Blue is this part. Like you're shading over it again. They both are here. But if you added them together, then you'd have more than the graph. So next one, I'm going to skip around a lot.
What's the 2.23? That's what's in between, or that's what?
Okay, so this is the area of the shaded part. So yours should just have the shaded part up here.
Well, now it's like shaded.
Yeah, I can't delete that right now. Skip to number 3. Now, I recommend always drawing 0 as reference. And I just don't usually put 0 there if I don't need it, because otherwise some of y'all draw, to be very honest, some of you draw terrible graphs when you draw them on your own, and I can't tell if you're trying to say that it's to the right of the center or not. This is telling me this is the center. Anything I draw could be relative to that. So where does my line go? On the right side or the left side? While on the right side, it's positive. So 0.23. And which way do I shade? What is the way the problem tells you? So when z equals 0.23, what does my chart tell me is the area?
The area to the left of it is 0.59.
0.5910. if you can, in a half a second, look at every problem you do, and the way I'm going to ask you this question, you're going to save yourself some easy mistakes. How much of the graph is this? In very, very general. More than half. How much of the graph is this? Should I stop there? Looking at that is going to catch 30% of the mistakes you're actually going to make. So this is telling me what I don't want, which is this way. How much is the whole graph? So what do I do with what I don't want? Which gives me let's go to 6. Let's go to 0. Where is my first line going to be? Generally, where's my first line going to be? To the left. Where's my other line going to be? Further to the left, because closer to 0 is literally closer to 0. So the farther one away is negative 1.83. The closer one to 0 is negative 1.56. And it says between, so I'm shading between. So when my z is negative 1.56, what is my area? When my z is negative 1.83, what is my area?
0.0336.
And some of you hopefully are going to be kind of thought process ahead of me there. When I do my first one, this much is 0.0594. Do I shade more or do I subtract to just get the shaded? Subtract. So 0.0594 minus 0.0336, which gives me what?
0.0258.
Say it again.
0.0258.
Number 8. Yeah.
I'm just confused on the subtracting part.
Okay, so pretend this is a problem by itself, right? So if I were to draw that, I would have just done all of this, right? With that part like here. So if I know that I want to end up with just a black part. So do I need to erase or shade more to end up with just a black part? So if you erase, you subtract. What do you subtract? That part. So this part would have corresponded with this section right here. So like, what did I want to erase? I wanted to erase that purple part. And please ask even tiny questions right now, because like I said, this is really like the basis for everything we're going to be doing. I've got my 0 reference line. How many vertical lines do I have other than the 0 reference line in this one? 1. Where is it generally? On the right, because it's positive. Where do I shade? Problem tells you. So when z equals 2.11, what does the chart tell me is my area? Not what? What do I do with that to get my answer? That is my answer. So I just use that chart. If I shade left, what do I do with what the chart gave me? That's your answer. If it tells me to shade right, what do I do with the area it gave me? If it says shade between two of them, what do I do? And so which one I always have somebody who does this. Which one has to go first? Now, what did I say those numbers in the middle correspond to me? In general, these are what kind of numbers? I used two things. What? I wrote it on all of them. This is what do we write when we wrote these numbers down? What equals? Area. Can I have a negative area? But can you shade a negative amount? No. So never, ever, ever, ever have an answer for area that is negative. That's why you're doing bigger amount of smaller. How much is the whole graph shaded? So can you ever have an answer that you shaded more than one? No. So your area always has to be between 0 and 1. If it's something outside of there, you made a mistake. Show of hands. I feel good about this. You're boring me. I get it now. That's probably not where I want to be. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is fill in the blanks of 1 through 9. So any of them 1 through 9 that we did not do yet, I want you to do. And now, like I said yesterday, like I've been saying, when I tell you to work, that doesn't mean you can't ever talk to anyone. Now, I do want you to try it. Don't copy what somebody else has. But talking while you're doing it is allowed and encouraged. Don't do them all to find out if you did them right or not. Check them as you go.